Okay, should we do this?
Let's go for it. I'm loving the energy.
Okay, so before we start with the questions, we're just gonna play a little game. So I'm gonna put on a timer, 30 seconds. So basically with the game, I just say any random thing and you answer with any random thing. Like it's just, yeah, basically. So let me set up the timer. Okay, go. Okay, what's for breakfast?
Oats.
Essential for a church conference?
Bible.
Biggest pet peeve?
Snap. Fur on the couch.
Something red.
Something red. Roses.
When is Monday?
The first day of the week.
Wildest thing you've ever done?
The what? The wildest thing I've ever done.
Oh.
I missed that. Well, at least I didn't say what the wildest thing I've ever done is. So
okay. Okay. We can skip that, or do you want to say it?
Sorry?
We can skip that, or do you want to say it? Do you want to?
We can skip it. I don't think they're ready for that.
Okay. I got you.
Keep it on the down low.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. So the first question will be, can you please tell us about your childhood, who you are, where you're from, where you were born, and all those nice stuff?
Gosh, there's a whole lot. Basically, I was born in Malawi. My parents are Malawian, and we moved when I was very little. So we traveled a lot. So from birth, after 3 months I was born, we moved to Ethiopia. And we lived there for like 3 years. And then from there, we moved to Swaziland. And that's literally where my childhood was. And in, I think, 2007, we moved to South Africa for 2 years, or a year actually. And then we moved to Kenya for 2 years. And then we came back in 2012.
Wow. So you kind of like traveled Africa. So what's your favorite, like in all these countries that you've been, like your favorite food? Like it can be from Ethiopia or any other country, like your favorite food just from one of these countries.
Goodness, I would say number one would be the food from my home country. Like food always tastes so good from there. And then secondly, from Ethiopia, they have something called injera, which is such an amazing, very distinct taste and, very different. You don't find it everywhere.
Yeah, I've tried some Ethiopian food and it banged. Wow.
It did. I'm glad. It's really good. It's a very interesting taste,
It really is. So one thing that reminds you of your childhood could be a song, anything that reminds you of your childhood.
I think for me it would be games. Like I grew up playing a lot of games, like PlayStation games, the whole Game Boy, that was one thing I always loved doing. Until today, I still love gaming. So that always makes me feel like a child again.
Yeah. Sounds exciting. So what do you do now? What does Karen do now?
I do a lot of things. So my 9 to 5 is actually a lecture. So I lecture at Pearson Institute of Higher Education, and I'm lecturing journalism and media studies over here. And then apart from that, I also run my own business that offers media services, ranging from content creation to hosting webinars. And then I also freelance. I'm a freelance journalist, so I still write for different publications. One of them is Forbes Africa. And right now we are actually working on the Forbes Africa 30 under 30 list for that.
Wow. Award-winning journalist. I have to clap.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Like when you received that award, what was your state of mind? How were you feeling? Your emotions? Can you please take us through that?
I was super excited. I received my award in last year. Yeah, actually last year, 2019. No, actually 2019. And it was a very superb feeling. It also made me feel like the stories that I write are, they're making some sort of impact on the continent, because I'm very, very passionate about African stories. And the award that I won was for the African growth story. And that was chosen from a selective number of stories that I submitted, all relating to Africa, the continent, and, just development happening on the continent. So that really made me feel like, this is where I enjoy being here, and I enjoy making an impact and having my stories being heard.
Wow. So what did you study in university? So your majors in university, what were they, and how old is Karen?
So I am currently 26, turning 27 in July. And I studied journalism and media studies, majoring in politics and English. And then for my honors level, I majored in video journalism. So video journalism is actually my passion, as well as financial journalism.
So who would you say was your biggest motivator? Mm-hmm. Did you always wanted to be a journalist?
Actually, no, not exactly. I didn't even know I wanted to be a journalist until I was, on campus and actually filling in the forms on what you want to study. But when I look back, I sort of realized that, my passion for journalism had always been there. I always loved, hearing stories. I always loved learning about other people. And growing up as a little girl, I would watch the Oprah show with my mom, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I really want to be like Oprah. And I would, line up my teddy bears on the bed, have a video camera rolling while I interviewed my teddy bears. And that basically was, set in stone for me. And that, made me realize that this is something I was passionate about even as a child.
So it was kind of like your foundation. And you would say Oprah, gave you inspiration to what Absolutely. You are doing now.
She's it's an inspiration even currently.
Wow. I think we all want to know, what is it like working for Forbes? Wow, Forbes. Big name. So what is it like? And can you please take us through you working for the first time for Forbes?
My first day, or I guess my first month working at Forbes, was quite interesting. It was an amazing experience. Number one, because it's a reputable brand, it's there's a lot of responsibility that goes into that. And on top of that, being able to be exposed to, really amazing people that have done amazing work, and your billionaires, your millionaires, people that are making impact in terms of finances. So that was, I had to stop myself from being starstruck most of the time when I'd interview people, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is someone I'm a huge fan of, but I also still have to be professional in me communicating to them. So it was amazing. It's a really great brand. And I think it's the way Forbes Africa is also trying to push, the agenda of telling more positive African stories is something that really aligns to what I believe in. And working with an editor who also really believes in the talent and pushing young people's stories out there, like with the Forbes Africa 30 under 30 list, as well as stories about women. We have the Leading Women Summit that is happening next week. And that is something that, I think is so amazing. And we don't really look at it that way. We always think about, the money aspect about Forbes. But apart from that, there's just so many inspiring stories of people that have overcome different things that we write about and focus on.
What you just said touches on my next question on what's your view on the changing and owning our African stories narrative?
I absolutely believe that we need to own our narratives. I think it's so important for us as Africans to tell our own stories, because for the longest time, we have not been able to do that, particularly on a mainstream scale. Our stories have always been looked at from the perspective of the outsider rather than the insider. Even looking at our textbooks, most of the stories that we read about history are always told from an outside perspective. And above and beyond that, the way we've been taught to tell stories has also been in the same way that the colonizers would tell stories. And that's how, our media became our media, because we were told the tools, but those tools only applied from the perspective of, the colonizer side of things. So, the form of African storytelling is very rooted in a more traditional setting, sitting down around a fire and, passing down stories from one generation to another. That's how we've always been. We do it in our songs, we do it in our music, we do it in our dance, in our art, in our creativity. So there's so many different ways in which we can go about telling stories, but the most important thing is being authentic to that. And the kind of impact that has on society is that it allows us to also believe in ourselves and also take pride in our own culture, our own beliefs, our own traditions. Because when I see someone that looks like me on the media, for example, obviously that makes me feel like, my story is worthy. I, as a Black woman, as an African woman, have the capabilities of making it big in life, or that my story is number one, is valid. So it's important that we get to that point, which I think we are slowly getting there, get to that point where we really own our narrative, and also, try and push out more positive agenda. Because for the longest time, Africa has been looked down upon as the dark continent, or the continent where there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of corruption, all the negative things that we can, think about when it comes to looking at the continent. But apart from that, there are also amazing stories of people doing great things, great places that we can go and visit. A lot of positive can come out of this. And I think we need to highlight that the most, because when we can see positive change, it means that we can believe in ourselves, and we can also empower others to want to change their communities.
That really is amazing. The African creative space is really doing that, like, profoundly, and Absolutely. It really inspires me a lot. How has the creative space in our continent added to your craft or motivated you? Has it added or motivated you in any way, like with your creativity and your craft?
Absolutely. Everything has a story to tell. When you think of any item in the world, anything on your desk, your earrings, your blouse, everything has a story to tell. And I think creatively that has really added to my craft as a journalist and as a storyteller, because I can look at something and really, try and examine what is the history behind this object. Why did the person who created this object think the way that they do? And once there's that African flair, it really inspires, that African creativity that is embedded in our culture, in our traditions, and that really, help me think about the way I tell my stories more authentically towards the African, and not necessarily for, an outsider's perspective, but just as it is, that this is my Africa. This is how I see the world. And there's so much inspiration that we can find on our continent that, doesn't even need fabricating. A lot of the best stories that I've seen that are told from an African perspective don't happen in studio. They happen outside and on the ground. And those are the kind of stories that I love to tell, stories that I don't have to, be in the office to tell a story, but I can actually go out there, whether it's a farm, whether it's a mine, whether it's, someone's working space. In that space, there are elements of creativity that we can learn from. And that's the richness in the African story that you don't get to see in other publications.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I went to a children's home
Yes.
last week. I spent the whole week there, and wow, because like I'm from South Africa, but I live in Rwanda currently. So it was eye-opening. It was like amazing, like how they do things differently from where I'm from, but like how we're so similar as well. So I really get you. Like, not all things happen in the studio, because like those kids have paintings, like they have like literally a mini gallery, and you would think it's a professional who painted them, and it's them. And I was really inspired, I don't want to lie. So I really second you on that. Can you please tell us about your biggest challenge? Like, what has been your biggest challenge in your creative journey?
I think my biggest challenge as a journalist, as a creative, as a young professional, has been looking at the way the industry supports younger professionals. I don't know if it's just an African thing, but perhaps what I've noticed is that it's very difficult to really, grow in financially in the media landscape. It's very, you can't put a price on creativity. You honestly cannot. And I think that has been a huge challenge, particularly in the journalism industry, especially now because print is dying out. Where do we make most of our money? And that has caused us to think about different ways in which you can make money online, digitally, but there's still issues that come with that because plagiarism exists. People can steal your work. I've seen a lot of my publications or stories that I've written being rewritten by other publications without giving credit to me. And on top of that, that means I'm not getting any money from that. So I think that's the biggest challenge, that, there's a lot of plagiarism that's happening and people are not getting paid their worth in the media industry. Just because someone is a young aspiring journalist or a young aspiring creative doesn't mean that their work should be given out for free. They spent their time studying that. They spent their money trying to study that, buy the equipment, buy the software, which costs a lot. So why should we give out what we learned, what we studied for, just for free? And I think that is a huge challenge that I've seen amongst a lot of creatives, that we're always complaining about people wanting us to do work for free or not being paid on time, not being paid the adequate amount. And I honestly wish that can change in the future going forward. And that can only also happen if we really put ourselves out there and take ourselves seriously. And we tell people that, this is what I am charging. This is how much my story or my, what I've done is worth. And then they start to see our worth in the same way.
Yeah, that really needs to be, like, systems need to be put in place, because it really is not like a good, like, perspective. Like, I feel like other journalists, like from other continents, they've already have systems put in place. So if like things to like kind of mitigate that can be implemented here in Africa as well. It really is not nice. I'm really sorry. What's one thing you wish somebody could have told you before you started doing what you're doing?
I think I wish someone would have told me that. Let me think about that. That's a very good question. I honestly wish I was told when I was starting out that, you must have confidence, believe in yourself. And I came from a background where I grew up very, very shy. I was not an outgoing person as much, but my role and my job kind of pushed me to do that. And now, as it stands, I can literally, like right now, I really wasn't prepared, but I think confidence helps in building yourself to the point that, you know what you've accomplished, you know what you've done, and you're not boasting about it, but you're saying that I deserve to be here. Because often than not, when you don't have confidence, you start to have this imposter syndrome where you're put into spaces or doors are opening for you, but you don't take them because you fear. You fear that, am I worthy? Is this something that I should do? And that gives us this doubt, and we start to lose a lot of opportunities just because of that. And I wish that was something that was encouraged, that, you deserve to be where you are. You deserve to be in spaces that you aspire to be in, and your work should speak for itself. So therefore, why do you doubt yourself? Just go out there and do it. Go out there and take it. If it's yours, it's yours. If it's what you want, then nothing should stop you from that.
Amen. I love that. I've been struggling with imposter syndrome as well. And I'm like, why? Why? So I really like support that. Yeah. So like when you were starting out, did you get any support? Like when you were like, okay, I'm gonna be a journalist. Well, like, what did your parents say? Like your community, like the people around you, did they support you in any way?
They did. My family was very supportive. Of course, there were like a few worries and concerns, particularly from my family, like, oh my gosh, are you going to get a job? Number one. Also, just because the media industry wasn't really looked at as like a viable way to make money. And then, secondly, also being someone who's a foreign national, that was also something that I had to think about. Like, is this the landscape where I'd want to tell stories? Would my stories be considered telling stories in a different country than where I was born? So those are some of the factors that, gave me some sort of fear towards this. But I think the support that I gained was immense. And, I was very fortunate enough to leave once I finished my varsity year. I was fortunate enough to get a job straight after working with ENCA, and that was my internship year, and I learned so much. There was a lot of support from the editors that side, a lot of support from the team that I worked with there as well. So in all, I'm just grateful that there was that support system for that. Yeah.
Thank you. So like I have 4 questions from aspiring writers.
Okay.
So it's Lindile and Anshaline. So I asked them what would they like to ask. I didn't tell them who it is, so it's gonna be a reveal.
Okay.
So it's gonna be a reveal. So I asked them why would they ask like a well-established journalist, because you are. Like, we need to give you that award-winning journalist.
Thank
like
you.
Who has her like so
Thank you, girl.
So like, first question, Miss, is how do you continuously grow and avoid complacency, especially if you've received a level of recognition, which you have?
I love that question. I think one of the things that I have learned, particularly in the industry, is number one, be good to the people on your way up, because you might meet them on the way down. And that not only just speaks to people, but also speaks to the roles that I would take on. And to continue to grow means that you definitely going to face challenges, because you can't grow without that. And putting myself in a position where I can take on challenges and in or jobs or certain tasks to do, and not think that they are above me, because nothing is above me. We all start somewhere. And that speaks to the quote that I was saying, that sometimes we say no to certain things because we feel like, oh, I'm better than this. But in actual fact, you never know where that gig or where that that interview, that job, that task that you're given might take you. And that in itself helps me to grow, also helps me to still keep myself very grounded as a human, as an individual, and also learn. Never be afraid to learn something new. And yeah, that is in itself something different. Like when I took on lecturing, that was something completely new to me as a journalist. But I was willing to learn. I was like, you know what? If we're going to do this, let's do this. I'm going to study. If it means late nights, I'm going to do those late nights and really push myself to get to a point where I feel like I've accomplished myself, because I am my only competitor. You are your only competitor. And if you're not competing with yourself, then you're not growing.
Ooh, yeah, I love that. The second question is, how do you find your voice?
How do I find my voice? I think it has to come with being true to myself. It's so easy, so easy to get lost in the different voices, particularly on social media. You see, influencer here, you see influencer there, you see, so-and-so is doing this, so-and-so is doing that, and you get caught up in thinking that this is the path that I'm supposed to do. Unlike some of my peers that I started with or studied with, I completely took on a different route, and it made me realize that everybody's unique, and there's no need for me to follow the crowd. A lot of people ask me, why did I leave journalism full time? Why did I take on lecturing? And to be honest, this was something that I was passionate about, and the opportunity presented itself, and I was like, let's do it, even if it means taking a break briefly from practicing journalism full time. That's all right. I think you just have to be true to yourself. Number one, you don't have to follow the crowd. You you create your own voice at the end of the day. You pursue what your purpose is, because if we all follow what everyone is doing, then we miss out on pursuing our purposes and what we're meant to do and be here on earth. So that allowed me to really follow my voice, and my spirituality also helps with that as well.
Yeah, amazing. How do you deal with writer's block?
Procrastination is my biggest my biggest flaw. I would say. I know. I think a lot of creatives can like attest to that writer's block, procrastinating, it's always difficult, because deadline, when it's time, you got to deliver at the end of the day. So I think in terms of that, I usually take a break. If there's something that today I don't feel like writing, I'm not in that space, or I'm not in a good space, let me say that rather, because to be honest, we always don't feel like working, but we have to, because bills have to get paid. But I think you also have to be open and honest with yourself, and take that break, give yourself a pat on the back for the things that you've done. But when it's time to do the work, you must. Whether it means cutting off your phone, switching off everything, getting this job done, it must be done. Because apart from being a creative, we are professionals, and we must treat our work in a professional capacity, and not just like, something we do for fun, because it is our bread and butter at the end of the day. So yeah, writer's block is real, but we must be structured enough to know when it's time to do the work.
That's so true. And I feel like that answers my next question, which was for a person who wants to start their creativitiness, but they feel stuck, what should they do? I feel like it answers that question. So, last question.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the last question?
I am ready.
If Karen had the opportunity to meet her younger self, maybe 18 or any age, what would you say to Karen?
I would say to her that, girl, you can be anything you want to be. Just believe in yourself, number one. And don't be afraid of pushing yourself to boundaries. Don't be stuck in a mindset. Open your mind, read more, listen more, and, trust yourself and trust your purpose and your journey, because where you are at, the challenge that you're facing now as a young Karen, that challenge is going to make you who you are in the future. So don't be stuck in the negatives of life, but always look and strive for the positives.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this. I hope you did as well.
I did. Thank you so much as well.
Thank you so much, Karen. I really enjoyed this. Happy Women's Month. You are like a trailblazer. Doing amazing. You inspired me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this platform.
I hope other people get inspired as well. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you get inspired. I hope you get motivated. I hope you find somebody to collaborate with you in this platform. I hope you get to learn something. I hope it impacts you one way or the other, and I hope you do something because you saw a video from this platform. Yeah, man. Please, if you feel like it touches you in one way or the other, like if you feel like, okay, this is my space, then do subscribe and comment and share. And yeah, same place, same down, same casa. Oh, Jesus. So please tune in again, same hour, which is this place. Same place, same time. Let's have a date again next Sunday.